South Jersey's official play-by-play home of the Eagles, Sixers, and Flyers.
At 0 point would I ever consider not being a fan of the team.
97.3 ESPN, WENJ, WENJ HD, Millville, Atlantic City. A Town Square media station serving all of South Jersey. This is Game Night with Josh Hinnett.
It's good!
On 97.3 ESPN and the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app.
And he scored!
Now live from inside the Ocean Casino Resort Studio, here's Josh Hinnett.
Josh Hinnett here on a Friday edition on 97.3 ESPN. Big Phillies news popping off a couple hours ago. We'll discuss the ramifications of that, plus the Flyers have introduced their new head coach. Rick Tocchet was introduced this morning, the former Flyer himself, and we'll talk more about it. We'll be joined by Arda Ocal. Of course, he covers the NHL for ESPN. We'll get his perspective on the, Rick Tocchet. There's a lot to get to with Tocchet, because I think that when you listen to his press conference from this morning, there's a lot of moving parts that I think have to be highlighted. So we'll get to that coming up. Arda Ocal will join us coming up in about 20 minutes from now. As always, you guys join the conversation. Phillies, big news. Flyers, in the news. 609-403-0973. Your DMs into 97.3 ESPN. Mobile app powered by First Bank of Sea Isle. I can't believe I'm saying this. The Philadelphia Phillies, listen to me. Every once in a while, one of these sports teams gets a good idea, and it came from me, right? And the idea was this. Find a phantom injury and put a guy on an injured list and let him take some time off. Now, I will say I am not going to accuse the Phillies or Aaron Nola of lying, because Aaron Nola did speak to the media. If you see my article at 973ESPN.com or the 973 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Sea Isle, you'll notice in my article that there is a quote from Aaron Nola, and he told the media that he's very frustrated. He prides himself on being a guy who can stay healthy. He also goes on to say in the conversation with the media, Aaron Nola, he told them that it was a freak accident, basically. And that he was basically doing what he always does to prepare. And again, I'm not going to sit here and say that he's lying, because maybe he did sprain his ankle, right? Maybe he literally did have this, whatever it was, happen. But I do find it, again, very convenient. And as I noted on my article on 973ESPN.com, I expected the Phillies to go with the injury he had before the Cubs start on April 27th, which was Nola had a neck strain, okay? And there were reports that it was going to keep him from from potentially starting versus the Cubs. And now, apparently, they're going to go with the ankle instead of the neck. Not sure why, but for whatever reason, that's the story they're going with, and they're sticking to it. So, but again, Nola says, something that just happened, just trying to do the same stuff I do before it starts during the week. It was a freak thing the way I came down on my ankle. So apparently that's the story they're going with. That's the narrative they're going with. But this is what made sense all along. You have a guy who is struggling immensely, a guy who's, the way he's playing, the way he's doing everything, something's off. Something's not right. And at first we thought, well, maybe it's the catcher. Maybe, his numbers with Marchand versus Realmuto, there was a significant difference in terms of ERA, home runs allowed, runs allowed, home runs allowed, everything. Innings pitched. So you thought, okay, his last start, he's got Real Muto. He'll be better. And he was worse. Excuse me. So if, and how do I say this without coming off as, excuse me. So how do I say this without coming out disingenuous? If Nola is going to take time off, now they say it's retroactive to May 15th. That means he can come back in 10 days. He probably will not. For those who are wondering why, because that is the end of their road trip. So they're probably going to let him go on a rehab assignment or two, and then he'll come back when they return from the road trip. Remember, they're leaving for Colorado and Oakland, which is now Sacramento, Athletics. That whole fiasco. Not a minor league ballpark for a major league team. What an embarrassment by baseball. But anyway. So Nola's probably not going to come back on the road trip. They're probably going to wait till they get back from the road trip. So I would anticipate that he is going to get a minor league rehab start. And I think that minor league rehab start will probably be a AAA, where Garrett Stubbs is. Why is that significant? Because Stubbs knows Nola very well. And Stubbs knows that Nola is a guy who he's got very particular aspects to his pitching style. Okay? And I think that having a guy like Stubbs who he can maybe have an honest conversation with, look, it's hard to tell a guy who's getting paid a 7-year contract worth $174 million. It's hard to have these conversations with that guy. But maybe if it's someone that he's familiar with, maybe if it's someone who he personally knows, right? Maybe if it's somebody who can look him in the eye and be like, dude, I've known you for years. Here's what's wrong. And they can work on it. Maybe that is the way to salvage Nola at this point. Because for those who are wondering, if you look at his starts by catcher in his career, Aaron Nola has 23 starts with Garrett Stubbs. Of all the catchers that have ever caught him, it is actually the best ERA of any of the Phillies catchers since 2021. Stubbs, catching Nola, has a 3.87 ERA. It's better than Real Muto in terms of runs allowed per game. Nola, in those starts, also has a better to strikeout to walk ratio than any catcher he's ever had catch him. 145 strikeouts for Nola in the starts with Stubbs. Batting average against, it's actually third best of all catchers. So maybe this is an opportunity for them to get him with Stubbs so we can learn and figure it out. And yes, thank you, Jeff from Ocean City. He said, Josh, I remember hearing you say that about Nola. Well, I appreciate you saying that, Jeff at Ocean City. I saw Steven Ventnor said the same thing earlier today. But the other side of the news is not just Nola going on the injured list. It's what they're doing with the starting rotation. We got to get into this, folks, here on 97.3 ESPN. I'm excited. Josh Hennig hanging out with you in the Ocean Casino Resort studio. They are not telling Taijuan Walker to take Aaron Nola's spot. They're getting creative. They're pushing Christopher Sanchez to start back. He will not pitch on Sunday. It is now going to be the number 8 prospect in the Phillies organization, Mick Abel. Huge, huge deal on a couple of fronts. Number one, Mick Abel is having the best year of his career in the minor leagues. Abel, for the first time in his Phillies tenure, looks like a former first-round pick. Looks like a former top prospect. People forget, this was a top 100 prospect for 2 straight years. There was a time where people wondered, Andrew Painter, Mick Abel, Griff McGarry. Is that the Phillies' new big three? Well, then Painter had the injury. And then Abel started to struggle in the minor leagues. What did they do this offseason? They did not trade Painter, Abel, or any of these guys. Instead, the Phillies' solution was to ask Garrett Stubbs to accept the demotion and let him go down in the minors to work with Abel and Painter and all the other young guys down there. And now, when you look at all the guys at AAA and you look at their numbers, almost every guy is having the best year of his minor league career, all but one. Nobody cares about Allen Wrangle, okay? But everyone else is having an exceptional year when being caught by Garrett Stubbs, Mick Abel, Nabel Chrismat, Kyle Tyler. You saw what Andrew Painter's been doing with him, okay? The Stubbs effect on Abel has been immense. And now you are bringing up a guy who could be one of two things for you. Could Mick Abel be auditioning for his next team? Could Mick Abel be auditioning to be a trade piece at the deadline? Remember, he is number 3 in all of AAA in strikeouts. He is number 2 in innings pitched. If he can come up to the major leagues this Sunday and have a good outing, that will elevate his profile as a trade asset. By the way, Pirates, not a good baseball team. It's an opportunity for him to take advantage of them. And by the way, 2 former first-round picks will be on the mound this Sunday. Paul Skeens, the pitching phenom for the Pirates, versus Mick Abel, former top 100 prospect, currently the 8th best prospect in the Phillies organization. Get your popcorn ready. Get your favorite drinks ready. Get the barbecue ready. Do whatever you got to do. Get ready. Abel, Skeens. This is one of those matchups that if you're a baseball geek, you get excited. Okay? 2 top prospects going at it this Sunday. Now, it's only going to be a spot start for Abel. Abel will go right back to the minor leagues after this Sunday. Taijuan Walker will be inserted into the rotation to take Aaron Nola's spot during the road trip. So now Taijuan Walker, he's the break glass case of emergency. This is an emergency. Nola needs a break. Taijuan, go out there and do your thing. And maybe it's something where if Taijuan himself pitches well again and again, he creates more value either to himself or is potentially a add-on or throw-in in a deal at the deadline. So again, the Nola to the injured list is a win-win for Philadelphia. And I'm looking forward to seeing what comes out of this. Because if Abel, again, pitches well, if Taijuan Walker pitches well, if Aaron Nola can find himself again after this injury list stint, this could be a huge, huge deal to help the Phillies moving forward. Because in spite of all of this, Philadelphia's starting staff, number 1 in strikeouts. They are 5th in ERA. Imagine if Nola pitched better, how great this team would be. Text board is open. 609-403-0973. Your DMs into 973 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle. Coming up on the other side, Rick Tocchet is the 25th head coach in Philadelphia Flyers history. We'll get a national perspective on it from ESPN's own Arda Ocal. He returns and joins us next on 97.3 ESPN FM, the 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle City.
You have the choice, whether it's going out to dinner or ordering takeout at a local restaurant. Those choices help to put money back into your community. And Town Square Media South Jersey puts a spotlight on local restaurants.
Go deep at Jester's Dive Bar in Rio Grande. Jester'sDiveBar.com. Provenza Restaurant in Ventnor, a Latin American steakhouse with daily specials. Find them on Facebook. The Cheese Board is back in Central Square Linwood with Chef Justin reviving the classic flavors you love.
Thank you for supporting these great local restaurants.
With GMF financing, qualified buyers excludes Traverse and Corvette excludes prior sales.
It's Bennett Chevrolet's Memorial Day blowout with prices that won't be beat. That's right, Bennett Chevrolet selling new Chevys at GM supplier employee prices. And you keep all the rebates, saving you as much as 20%. Who else can make an offer this good? Nobody. That's who. Get to Bennett Chevy's Memorial Day blowout all this month and save up to 20% on new vehicles with GM supplier employee pricing, and you keep all the rebates. Plus, you'll save even more with Bennett's available 0% financing. And if you're looking for your best deal on pre-owned, Bennett's paying a minimum $10,000 for any trade, no matter the mileage or condition. You'll get at least 10 grand towards any pre-owned. Imagine how much more Bennett pays for a good trade. And there's no need to negotiate. Never any haggles or hassles, because our non-commissioned sales team is paid on your satisfaction, not how much you spend. Together, let's drive. Bennett Chevy, Egg Harbor Township, and BennettChevy.com.
Another checkup? Why are so many people getting new puppies?
Dr. Kim's veterinary office is littered with cuteness.
We are booked solid for weeks, but who can say no to a puppy, right? Oh, who's a good boy? Oh, who's what? Oh,
She needs to find extra vet techs to get those pups some extra love.
I need Indeed.
Indeed you do. When you sponsor a job on Indeed, candidates can find it easier, so you can hire easier. Redeem your $75 credit at Indeed.com/credit. Terms and conditions apply.
It's time to make your yard the best on the block with Memorial Day savings at the Home Depot. Start by keeping the weeds at bay with Earthgrow mulch, now 4 for $10. Then keep your garden thriving with Miracle-Gro garden soil, now on special buy, 4 for $10. Give your neighbors yard envy all summer long with Memorial Day savings going on now at the Home Depot.
Two guys drove to work. Neither guy wore a seatbelt. One guy got a ticket. One guy didn't. The same two guys drove home. One guy wore a seatbelt. One guy didn't. One guy made it home. The guy not wearing his seatbelt didn't. Don't risk it. Click it or ticket. Paid for by NHTSA.
This is the Town Square, New Jersey Info and Weather Network.
Progressive Insurance presents the Sports Flash on 97.3 ESPN. The Philadelphia Flyers making it official, introducing Rick Tocchet as their head coach on Friday. He becomes the 25th head coach in franchise history. Tocchet played 18 seasons in the NHL, 11 of them with Philadelphia, and he's in the team's Hall of Fame. He replaces John Tortorella, who was fired in March. The Flyers played under Brad Shaw on an interim basis for the rest of the season. The Phillies at home tonight to begin a 3-game set against the Pittsburgh Pirates. Ranger Suarez getting the start against Andrew Heaney. Philadelphia split a doubleheader on Wednesday against the St. Louis Cardinals, winning Game 1 2-1, but then losing Game 2 14-7. The Eagles released their 2025 schedule on Wednesday. They will open the season September 4th, the Thursday night game against Dallas. They'll play Kansas City in Week 2 in a Super Bowl rematch. They also have a Monday night game in Week 10 against Green Bay and another Monday night game in Week 14 against the Chargers. Progressive Insurance, bundle auto and home, renters or condo, and save with Progressive. I'm Tony Desiri, and that's your Sports Flash on 97.3 ESPN.
Hi, I'm Dave, branch manager with Viking Pest Control. From answering your kitchen to mosquitoes in your yard or termites threatening your home, Viking has customized solutions for you. Trust our local experts to handle the pests so you can have peace of mind. Learn more at VikingPest.com.
Good afternoon with your South Jersey weather forecast. I'm Joe Kelly. Going to be cloudy for the most part tonight. A low temperature about 63. Tomorrow looks hot. We're going to start off with some clouds in the morning, giving way to lots of sunshine in the afternoon. Lots of heat, too. Tomorrow's high all the way up to 85 or 86. The outlook for Sunday, pretty good. Sunshine and 76. And your back to work Monday will be sunny with a high of 77. That's your South Jersey weather forecast. You have a great weekend. I'm Joe Kelly.
You have the choice, whether it's going out to dinner or ordering takeout at a local restaurant. Those choices help to put money back into your community. And Town Square Media South Jersey puts a spotlight on local restaurants.
Tuckahoe Inn Restaurant, come join the good times. Tennessee Avenue Beer Hall, great beer, killer eats, unmatched vibes. Island Grill Restaurant, serving fresh, delicious seafood favorites in Ocean City for 30 years.
Thank you for supporting these great local restaurants.
This is Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app.
Hey, Rick, it's Billy Schwein from 97.3 ESPN. The Flyers haven't made the playoffs in 5 years, and we've been told, obviously, it's a rebuild. Yeah. What are your expectations for this team this year?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think, get the team to play better. Like like every individual has untapped talent, right? To whatever level it is, it's my job to untap it. I think the direction, I know where this is going, and I like the direction. I actually love the direction that these guys have laid out. I believe in it, and I want to be a part of the solution. It's just not me. It's not about Rick Tocchet. It's about everybody. But for me, I know what I got to do to keep this ball going. And there's a lot of tools here to work with. That's what has attracted me, Billy, to this job.
That was our own Billy Schwein talking to Rick Tocchet at today's press conference. Very interesting press conference. For those who didn't get to hear it earlier on the Sports Bash, Mike Gill played it here on 97.3 ESPN. I thought that I wanted to start with that question because I thought that the question that Billy asked Rick Tocchet is probably the most poignant of any question that could be asked, which is, what are the expectations for this team? We know it's a rebuild, but what does that mean? And there were two parts to that question that I thought were very, very, very important. The number one answer that was important there by Tocchet was he said, I know where this is going. And he had said multiple times in the press conference, he came to Philadelphia for a lot of reasons, right? He came to Philadelphia because he knew the people running a team. He came to Philadelphia because he saw the talent and the future potential that was here. He knew it's an organization that's got salary cap availability. He pointed out to a lot of stuff. But what was key there is he says, I know the direction that we are going in. Because he's seen it before. And remember, this is a guy who is 2 years removed from being the NHL Coach of the Year, the Jack Adams Award winner. And the only reason why he's no longer in Vancouver is because there was a huge disconnect between the front office and him. This has been documented by a lot of people who cover the NHL. And Tocchet is a guy who, I don't know him personally, but from everything I've read and heard, he is a guy who is very specific and particular about how he does things. And I think the fact that he is him and Keith Jones are close. Okay, they're very friendly. He mentored Danny Briere for a time, Tocchet when they were playing. So there's a lot of familiarity with these guys. And I think that familiarity allowed Tocchet to maybe have some conversations with Briere and Jones that maybe he wouldn't have had with other teams. I don't know if Tocchet is the kind of guy who would go to a situation if that situation didn't make sense for him. And I think that the other part of what he said is, look, I'm here to get the most out of these guys. And that's also key. Because remember, his first coaching stint didn't go very well. His 2 years in Tampa were, underwhelming to say the least. But it was much younger back then. The organization was at a point of transition. And they missed the playoffs each of the years he was there. But they took a time off from coaching. He didn't get back into coaching again for 7 years. So we kind of hit the reset button. And then he went to an organization that, frankly, has been a dumpster fire for a very long time. The former Arizona Coyotes, who are now the Utah Hockey Cubs / the Mammoth, which we're not getting to that point. But during his time in Arizona, he got a franchise that had been an absolute dumpster fire and got them to the postseason. All right? He was able to take a team of zero expectations and got them to the second round of the postseason with a roster that, frankly, when you look back on it, I still don't understand how they did it. I mean, I get they had Phil Kessel, but who else is on the team? That team was the ultimate. We found a bunch of guys who are willing to play here. We're going to try to develop some guys, and we're going to hope for the best. The Flyers have better talent, more resources, and are a better run organization than Arizona. By the way, Vancouver, same deal. His first year there, they didn't do much. Okay? But it was the next year when he had a full year under his belt is when they got to the postseason. And he won Coach of the Year. Got to the second round again. Lost a 7-game series to a team that eventually win the Western Conference, that being the Edmonton Oilers. Now, this year obviously was a huge disappointment in Vancouver. It did not go the way they had hoped. And they didn't make the postseason. But there's also a massive disconnect between Tocchet and the front office. And there was a lot of speculation during the season that they were going to fire him. Now, they didn't fire him, which is a positive because they eventually got better as the year went on. But it's obvious that this guy is a guy who comes in the situations and makes them better. Danny Briere also said at the press conference that they are committed to Tocchet as the long-term coach of this team. Meaning, they are not bringing Tocchet in to just be the guy to get them to the next level. They have a vision of him being the guy to not be their Pete McCannon with the Phillies or Gabe Kapler with the Phillies. They're not bringing Tocchet in here to be a temporary bridge to the next coach. They envision him being the guy when they win and make postseason runs. So that'll be interesting because, again, it takes Tocchet a year or two to get his teams to the postseason. So don't be surprised if the Flyers miss the postseason for one more year. But they said this morning at the press conference, Tocchet and Briere admitted about the salary cap. They acknowledge we have a lot of talent coming up in the system. You know, the Flyers minor league team, the Phantoms, they made a deep postseason run in the American Hockey League. So they were one of the best minor league hockey teams in all NHL minor league hockey teams this year. So they know they have talent in the minor league system. It's a question of how many guys with the Lehigh Valley Phantoms are going to be able to make it to the next level. How many of those guys can you convert into somebody who's going to be able to play at the next level? Now, look, I am not a minor league expert. I'm not a guy who studies minor league hockey as much as I might follow college football or baseball minor leagues or college basketball. But I do know that there are a couple of guys with the Lehigh Valley Phantoms who are being watched very closely. Okay? One of them is Ali Lixel. Another one is Jacob Goucher. These are two forwards who are looked at as potential guys who can compete for the Flyers in the future on their main roster. The problem with both of those guys is there's not an obvious spot on the roster for them, number one. Number two, two guys are getting older. And it's hard to take older guys and depend on them long term. So if you have guys who are getting to a certain age and they still have not made an impact at the NHL level, I don't know what the future holds for them. So there's that side of the coin. But there are guys like Jet Luchenko. There are guys in the minor league system who the organization does have a long-term view. And it'll be interesting to see how that works out for them. So a lot to keep an eye on with the Flyers in their future. The other part of it is there is reporting out there that teams are literally calling the Flyers now because former teammate of Ron Hextall, Rick Tocchet, is now the head coach. He has a lot of positive relationships around the NHL. There's a lot of a lot of players who like him as a coach. So we'll see. We'll see what happens with Hextall. All right, we're at the early break here. I'm having a back and forth conversation with what's supposed to be our guest, so we're going to try to get him on the other side. Josh Hennick hanging out with you. Share the text board as well this hour, 609-403-0973. Your DMs into 973 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank Seattle. And we are live on my YouTube channel, as always, at Josh Hennick.
Saturday morning in the locker room with Billy Schwein. Nick Earnshaw joins me in the studio. The Pirates come to town for 3, and we'll talk Phillies baseball. The Flyers introduce their new head coach, Rick Tocchet, and I'll play my interviews with Tock and Keith Jones. Mr. Negadelphia PJ Korda checks in, brought to you by the Vassar Pool Service on the Sixers pick and the Eagles schedule. It's the 150th Preakness on Saturday, and we'll talk with the Fast Lane handicapper, Jeffrey Nash. He will preview the race. It's the locker room with Billy Schwein, Saturday morning from 10 a.m. to noon on 97.3 ESPN.
Want to stay out of the dark the next time a storm hits? Then reach out to Calvi Electric, a certified Generac dealer. From installation to maintenance, they're your go-to experts for Generac generators, ensuring your home stays powered through any storm. A Generac home standby generator will automatically restore power to your home during an outage, so your life goes on uninterrupted. Put your trust in Calvi Electric, the premier electrical contractor serving South Jersey for over 115 years. Visit calvielectric.com today and stay ahead of any storm.
Protect your home and auto with a bundle from Progressive so you can stop worrying about them and invent new things to worry about, like snakes in your bedroom. Sure, that sounds incredibly irrational, but now that we've mentioned it, you are a little worried. The odds of one snake, let alone snakes plural, are so slim. But you might want to check. Oh, you're not near your bedroom. Guess you'll just have to sit there and worry about it. So let Progressive protect your home and auto, because you've got enough to worry about. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company, affiliates, and other insurers. Not available in all states.
Here's Comedians and Skechers Getting Comfortable, presented by Hands-Free Skechers Slip-Ins.
Hey, I'm Bobby Slayton, and I'm here with my pal, comedian, and Skechers ambassador, Mr. Howie Mandel.
Why did it take so long to invent something as amazing as slip-ins? I know it seems simple, but it took Skechers to invent a better pair of shoes.
Yep, with Skechers slip-ins, you just step it and go. You don't have to touch your shoes. And by the way, slip-ins are for the whole family, men, women, and kids. In all your favorite Skechers styles, find Skechers slip-ins at a Skechers store, Skechers.com, or wherever stylish footwear is sold.
Wesley Financial Group is not a law firm.
Do you find yourself stuck in a timeshare? Get the real facts about the timeshare industry and your options for cancellation. Chuck McDowell, founder of Wesley Financial Group, has put together a free information guide that reveals the secrets the timeshare industry doesn't want you to know, including the 5 ways to get rid of your timeshare. Call now and get this timeshare cancellation guide absolutely free.
Call 800-242-1551. That's 800-242-1551.
888-242-1551. Paid for by Wesley Financial Group.
Find what you love, love what you find. A Total Wine and More. There's so much waiting for you. Spirits and beer, thousands of wines. Guides in the know and prices so low. It just might blow your mind. You're gonna find what you love and love what you find.
With curbside pickup available, you'll always find what you love, only at Total Wine & More.
Drink responsibly, B21.
The perfect time to upgrade your carpet is right now. Get free carpet installation with the purchase of Home Decorators Collection's special order carpet. Give your floors a new, softer feel from timeless and trendy options with the performance to support everyday life. Refresh your carpet today with the Home Depot. Offer valid May 15th through June 1st, 2025. Receive free basic carpet installation with the purchase of Home Decorators Collection special order carpet. Excludes stock carpet.
Thy ticket, Lady Jennifer of Coolidge.
Well, many thanks, good sir. Here'th my Discover card.
They accept Discover at Renaissance fairs?
Yeah, they do here. Discover's accepted at the places I love to shop. Getteth with the times.
With the times? You're playing the lute.
Yeah, and it sounds pretty good, right?
Discover is accepted at 99% of places that take credit cards nationwide. Based on the February 2024 Nielsen report.
Still getting around to that fix on your car? You got this. On eBay, you'll find millions of parts guaranteed to fit. Doesn't matter if it's a major engine repair or your first time swapping your windshield wipers. eBay has that part you need, ready to click perfectly into place for changes big and small. Loud or quiet. Find all the parts you need at prices you'll love. Guaranteed to fit every time. But you already know that. eBay. Things, people, love. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply.
Something good to know from First Bank of Sea Isle City. We have all of today's innovative banking products just like the big banks, but we offer something they can't. A personal community focus. Let's get you started with Bill Pay. You save time when you pay your bills online. It's fast, easy, and convenient. First Bank of Sea Isle City. A community bank that delivers more for you every day. Personal service, today's technology, from the people who truly care. Learn more at firstbankseaisle.com.
Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
Now, more Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and on the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app, powered by First Bank of Sea Isle City.
We'll continue the hockey talk now. Rick Tocchet, the 25th head coach in Philadelphia Flyers history. What does it mean to people who cover him nationally? This is a guy who just a couple years ago won the Jack Adams Award. This is now his fourth head coaching stop. Well, Ardo O'Cal covers the NHL as part of ESPN's multi-platform coverage, and he joins us right now on 97.3 ESPN. Ardo, welcome in. How you doing today?
Doing great. How about yourself?
Doing good. So the last time you and I talked, right, John Tortorella was the head coach of this team. The last time we talked, we were looking at, Travis Sanheim is doing pretty good at the Four Nations tournament. Well, a lot has changed since the last time you and I talked, and now it's Rick Tortorella is the 25th head coach in Flyers history. Big picture, what is your take on Rick Tortorella as the Flyers coach?
So I would say that this is a great match together. Rick Tocchet, obviously a Flyers legend, and he has a lot of head coaching experience now. But when you envision him behind the bench, especially the way the coaching carousel shook down this season, when the Flyers and John Tortorella parted ways, really a lot of people, even when he was still with Vancouver in that moment, were envisioning Rick Tocchet to be the next coach of the Flyers. And that's exactly what happened. He has a long, great relationship with team president Keith Jones, and he's very much, a fabric of the Flyers organization, and he's a Flyers legend. And, it just makes a lot of sense from that point of view. But also, I think he's going to do really well with that core of players. I think that he has a lot of great young talent that he can sink his teeth into. I think that his coaching style is very player focused, and he seems to get the best out of his players in many situations. I think that's going to suit the Flyers very, very well. And it's going to be, a different coaching style than what John Tortorella brought to the table. Obviously, they're both towards one of the most successful coaches, has had a, illustrious coaching career. He's won a Stanley Cup. So, but with Rick Tocchet, he has an opportunity to build something there and turn this team into a contender.
You brought up the point about his relationship with the guys in the front office, and he didn't overtly say it today, but Tocchet mentioned about, hey, I see what they're doing here. I know the direction they're going. And he even mentioned multiple times about how, I see where this is going. And I have to think, Arda, when you talk about a guy like Tocchet, who now has coached this is going to be his fourth different organization as a head coach, and then he was an assistant coach with Pittsburgh for years, there's got to be a part of this conversation where he's not just coming here because his buddies work here. He's coming here because he sees where the organization is going.
Yeah, and by the way, having buddies in the organization really just gets your foot in the door, for an interview or something, I'm certain that he was one of the first texts or something to that degree. But that's not, you're absolutely right. That's not all that's going to seal the deal. Even if you're buddies with the front office and you don't like what's happening with the team and, they're trending downward according to you, and you don't like some of the players on the team or whatever the case may be, it's not going to fit you, right? So clearly it's not just the fact that he likes the, great relationship with Keith Jones, and he likes what's happening there. That's a big key to that. That's a big part. But also the inverse is true too. Like Keith Jones said in the press conference, hey, as soon as we announced Rick Tocchet, I got calls from agents. Like Daniel Briere said the same thing. We're getting calls from agents. Their players want to play with Rick Tocchet. He has a level of respect around the league where they are getting calls saying, hey, consider bringing my player here. So that's very much a culture building thing. When you have a coach that is so well respected among the players in the NHL that they want to play for him, that's going to make it a lot easier to try and build a winning team and a competitive team.
Talking with Arda O'Kyle. Of course, he is part of ESPN's NHL multi-platform coverage. He's joining us here on 97.3 ESPN. Arda, you mentioned about the people calling. So what is it then about Rick Tocchet that a player or a player's agent would be like, that's a guy? Because you ask a fan, right? The fan doesn't really know about his history. The average fan is either going to say one of two things to you, Artie. He's going to say, I remember Rick Tocchet when he played. Or you're going to have the fan who's going to turn around and say, this guy's been in the playoffs twice. He doesn't have a lot of success.
Yeah, but also the coaching position is a very fickle position. Often it's a thankless position, and the turnover is very high, right? For every John Cooper and Mike Sullivan and the tenures that they've had with their teams, and now Mike Sullivan moving on to the Rangers, there are plenty of coaches that, even if it's no fault of their own, they're just a victim of circumstance. And so, in the Vancouver Canucks case, I don't know the reasons why, but maybe there was something that he didn't like there. Maybe it was not the right fit anymore. Maybe things occurred, whatever. All we know is that he's joining Philadelphia. And I would say that from the players that I have spoken to that have had Rick Tocchet as a coach, they respect the way that he approaches the game. He's very much a student of the game. The way that he communicates with his players and sets those expectations is very clear, according to the players I've spoken to. He has high standards that he wants his players to meet. But also he, as a former player, understands how to manage that, how to manage expectations, but also manage output. And I think that is very, very valuable.
Obviously, one of the things they mentioned at the press conference this morning as well was, both by Briere and Tocchet, was the upcoming salary cap flexibility. For the first time in a long time, the Flyers are going to have some salary cap flexibility. They're finally getting out from under the abomination that Chuck Fletcher did to this organization's salary cap. Well, what does that mean, though? The fan out there is going to ask, well, why should we care about the salary cap? Why are they mentioning it so much? So, Arda, explain that to the audience why, for a team that keeps saying they're rebuilding, why having salary cap space is going to matter.
So the salary is going to go up a significant amount. I think it's somewhere between $5 and $8 million. It's a pretty high number that it's going to jump next year, and it's going to continue to jump in increments. Basically, the short story is COVID essentially damaged the ability to increase the salary cap every year at a percentage that players and front offices were expecting due to the fact that the revenue share must be at a certain percentage according to the collective bargaining agreement. I won't get into the whole details of it, but basically, for the purposes of our conversation, that caused the salary cap to either remain stagnant or have nominal increases. But now that we're in a situation where all of that escrow is paid off and everything is back to normal or back to even playing field, now we can see these jumps in salary cap. And what that means for teams, including the Flyers, is that they'll have more money to spend. They will have more opportunity to sign players that are on their last year of their contract and they're playing out of their minds and they need to have a hefty raise. Now there'll be more money to be able to do that. Or they'll have more money to be able to attract unrestricted free agents or players that are available in the summer and around the trade deadline, et cetera. So that's good for teams like the Flyers because just going back to what I said, if people love playing for Rick Tocchet and if the Flyers have suddenly become a very, very appetizing place to play, well, now there's a couple more bucks to work with and to be able to attract those players and give them a competitive salary, which ultimately most players, it's going to come down to dollars and cents in many situations. So that's good for the Flyers.
Couple more for Ardo Cal before we let him go here. Joining me on 97.3 ESPN, Josh Hennig in the Ocean Casino Resort Studios. The NHL draft is a month away. There's a lot of speculation with the Flyers having 3 first-round picks. They could maybe trade 1 or 2 of those picks to get another pick, maybe a player, maybe both. Do you expect the Flyers to be active with those draft picks?
I think that they certainly could look to trade 1. I think it would be a situation where does it make sense? Does it fill a need for us? I don't know if they're necessarily going to be outwardly aggressive in shopping those picks. I don't think that they're going to send any calls to voicemail, but I do think that it's not necessarily priority number 1 as we get to the NHL draft. But I will also say that this draft is not necessarily there's a giant superstar like a Connor Bedard or a Macklin Celebrini. Like the top 5 are pretty good names, but it doesn't have the same feel of a generational superstar is in this draft. But it is a pretty good first round outlook. So thinking of all of that, is it we want to keep these picks because we like what we might be able to get at these selections, or is there something out there that we can use these as a leveraging chip to improve our team now?
Before I let you go, I got to ask you what's going on the ice. We got 2 Game 6s coming up. Tonight, Toronto versus Florida. Tomorrow on ABC, it's Winnipeg at Dallas. Which one of those series do you think, if you had to pick one, is going to get to a Game 7?
The Winnipeg-Dallas will go to a Game 7. That's what I think. I think the Panthers close it out tonight. And I think it's going to be quite the interesting offseason for the Leafs if that does happen.
Very, very interesting. He's Ardo Cal. Of course, he covers the NHL, part of their multi-platform coverage, ESPN, NHL, ESPN+. And, of course, you catch him sometimes on SportsCenter as well. Ardo, appreciate you jumping on today.
Anytime. Thanks, man.
Josh Hennig here on 97.3 ESPN. Some great stuff there from Ardo. I'm glad he was able to jump on because I especially love his explanation about the salary cap. And, I know that, you're kind of bordering on that, geek talk where it's like the average fan starts tuning out. I literally, I'm in the studio. I did the turning of a knob. I'm so old. No, seriously. It's the idea that, I understand that some of this conversation about salary caps and money and numbers is kind of it's hard to digest if you're not, 100% in like someone like me is. But I thought Artie did a great job at explaining it, and that is we are entering an era where the money is going to become available again, where the team's financials are going to become more flexible for everyone. So now, if you're a team like the Flyers that is coming out of salary cap purgatory and entering an era where now you are one of the teams that's going to have more money than other teams. Because if everyone's cap is going up, but you're the one who's got the bigger amount of money to spend, work with, now you become a player. And, it's the idea that, when we've heard from Flyers insider Kevin Durso, our 97.3 ESPN.com Flyers insider, when we've talked to Scott Laughlin from SiriusXM NHL Radio, when we've had conversations with different people, with Haley Taylor-Simon on earlier this week from Philly Sports Network, it's the idea that everyone who covers the league says the same thing. The Flyers, they anticipate they're going to do something this offseason. I listen to national people here and there, and I don't think it's a coincidence that the national people keep pointing to the Flyers as keep an eye on them. I genuinely believe that the Flyers are going to make a big move or two this offseason. Now, it might not be for a superstar necessarily, but it'll be upgrades because they need to make upgrades. They need better defensemen. They need more depth at the center position. They need to address what is going on with the goaltender, right? So, you got to have money and resources to make that work. And I don't know about you guys, but there's a couple of people who are going to be free agents that I think make a lot of sense for this organization. And specifically on the goaltender front, I think that if you can go out, and I'm not saying he's the answer necessarily, but a guy who just came off a very good couple seasons in New York, who I think will be a great tandem goalie for a year with Sam Ersson, is Jonathan Quick. I know he's getting older, but the guy had 3 shutouts last season. He is still a goaltender who can play a very quality level of hockey, and now you don't have this crazy drop-off between the goaltenders. And unless you're going to go out and get a bigger name, right? Unless you're going to go out there and get a substantial player when it comes to making additions for this team, you got to add around the margins. And the reason why that's important as well is because, and I'm not trying to get your hopes up, but the free agent class in 2026 is much bigger than 2025. Really, the only guy that's a big name that you would be interested in this offseason would be John Tavares. And I don't even know if he's leaving Toronto. There's a lot of speculation that he's going to re-sign there. And then the only defenseman that you're really thinking of spending money on in this free agent class might be Aaron Ekblad. But again, is Florida letting him leave? There's a lot of players who are in the back end of their careers who are free agents this offseason that I'm not sure you want to overspend on. It's next free agent class that's got everyone paying attention. Connor McDavid, Artemi Panarin. You have a goaltender who's getting older in Sergei Bobrovsky, a former draft pick of yours. Jack Eichel will be 30 years old. Is Cale Makar going to hit free agency and try to get a big contract? Could you be in line to get him? You have guys like Patrick Laine out there. You have defensemen such as John Carlson, who might be a good veteran to add to this team. The 2026 draft class, free agent class is where it's at. So now, don't overspend this year. Get a small deal here. Get a 1-year deal here or there. Add some pieces to get you through the year. Some veterans to help the young guys develop. Maybe trade a couple of draft picks to get a player on a current contract. Now you enter 26-27 season with a big name. And remember, some of you out there may be saying, dude, Connor McDavid is not leaving the Oilers. Well, first of all, we said that a long time ago about Gretzky. Remember how that went. Number two, McDavid is not getting any younger. He's on a team right now that has advanced to the Western Conference Finals for the second straight year. But they've never won a cup. And frankly, if we're being honest, that Stanley Cup final from last year, it was a 7-game series, but it didn't really feel like a 7-game series. That felt like the Panthers were going to win almost the entire time. So if you're the Oilers, you got to show McDavid you're serious about winning this season and next season. Because if you don't, you're giving him reasons to leave in free agency. Okay? Again, the Oilers have been to the conference finals now 3 of the last 4 years. If you don't win a cup, if you're Edmonton, this year or next year, when McDavid is 31 years old, you're giving him reasons to leave. And that's why guys like him and others are highly sought after in 2026, because there's going to be a lot of suitors. And we know in the Ed Snyder years, when he was with us, when he was running the team, he was hyper aggressive. And in a city where the Sixers haven't won a championship since '83, the Flyers haven't won a championship since the 1970s, they're looking across the street and they're seeing the Eagles with not one, but 2 Super Bowl parades. You don't think that there's some pressure in this city? You don't think for 1 minute that there is a level of pressure? Kendrick Perkins from ESPN talked about this, about the 76ers.
The Eagles won a Super Bowl. No, I'm serious.
What's that have to do with anything?
Because it does. Because, listen, when you play in the city, it puts pressure on the other organizations to win championships. So, I mean, it's a good spot to be in, but they got to make sure they do the right thing with that number 3 pick. And it's going to be interesting to see what Daryl Moore and Elton Brand do with it.
The pressure goes both ways. Flyers, pressure too. Have a great everybody. Catch you Monday.
The NBA playoffs continue on ESPN Radio. The Celtics.
All right, really quick post show. Josh Hennig on my YouTube channel. Like, subscribe, share it with your friends. Obviously, the show did not go as planned. Our guests had to jump on a little bit later, so I kind of had to shuffle things around, so I didn't get to the NFL news. For those who didn't see, big NFL news today. Brock Purdy has finally signed his deal. Okay? And I just realized that for you on YouTube, you did not hear the Kendrick Perkins cut. So that's my bad job. I didn't see that mess up on the board. I will play you the audio bite in just a minute. But let me get this out about Brock Purdy, and then we'll go back to the Kendrick Perkins point. So, all right. Don't mind me, folks. It's been a crazy day. The Nola news threw us off today. So we're trying to recalibrate here. But thank you for watching the post show. So here's the deal with Brock Purdy. 49ers quarterback, finally gets this deal. Everyone's making a big deal about the total money. $265. Frankly, that's for Gazy. Nobody cares. The real conversation, $181 million guaranteed. Why does that matter to you? Well, if you're an Eagles fan, that 181 should sound familiar. Doing my Brian Windhorst fingers point here. The 181 is the same guaranteed money that Jalen Hurts got a couple years ago. So what the 49ers did is, yes, they offered Brock Purdy a crazy amount of money that he can earn up to. But what they did is they went to him and said, Brock, there is a number that a quarterback after losing a Super Bowl got paid. We are willing to give you that number. Jalen Hurts lost the Super Bowl. The Super Bowl. He was the runner-up for NFL MVP. The Eagles gave him $181 million guaranteed. I'm sure part of the conversations between the 49ers and the representative of Brock Purdy said the same thing. Look, this is the number. This is the standard. This is the market. Your guy has never won an MVP, never won a championship, and frankly, we are entrusting our organization to you. They basically said, Brock Purdy, we believe in you, but we don't believe in you because of what you've done, so we're not going to overpay you based on what you've done. And I don't think it's a big deal, honestly. I don't think it's a big deal that he's only getting 181 guarantee. I think that I say good for him. You know, people are making a big deal about the 265. Again, that's for Gazy money. He's never going to make that money unless he gets certain incentives. It's the 181 guaranteed. It goes to show you the Eagles are, again, the standard. You have two organizations in the NFL that are the standard. The Eagles and the Chiefs. Everyone else is chasing after them in terms of how they run their organization, how they run their drafts, how they run free agency, how they do everything. 49ers are another team that looked at Philadelphia and said, that's the model that we are going to follow. Very, very interesting news today. Now, as I said, for those of you on the YouTube channel, at Josh Hennig, like, subscribe, share with your friends. And we were running out of time on the radio show, okay? But here was the Kendrick Perkins audio I talked about how, you know, Kendrick Perkins talked about there's pressure in a city like Philadelphia when a team like the Eagles win a championship. And Kendrick should know because he played in Boston before the Celtics won an NBA championship, their first since the 1980s. The Patriots had recently won 3 Super Bowl rings. Here's what Kendrick Perkins had to say on ESPN earlier this week.
The Eagles won a Super Bowl. No, I'm serious.
What's that have to do with anything?
Because it does. Because, listen, when you play in the city, it puts pressure on the other organizations to win championships. So, I mean, it's a good spot to be in, but they got to make sure they do the right thing with that number 3 pick. And it's going to be interesting to see what Daryl Moore and Elton Brand do with it.
Huge, huge point by Kendrick Perkins. And frankly, I'm surprised more people haven't talked about this. I've tried to talk about it on 97.3 ESPN and right here on my YouTube channel at Josh Hennig, is that this stuff is psychological. If you believe something, it'll come to fruition. If you believe you could be a champion, it'll happen. Look at the Boston Celtics that Kendrick Perkins was a member of. Patriots winning championships. Boston hadn't won a championship since the 1980s. It was 20 years, but they did it. What happened a few years after Boston Celtics won a championship? You know who else won a championship? The Boston Bruins. A few years later, you know who won a championship? The New England Patriots. And then, after the Patriots' last championship, Boston Celtics won another. There is a 25-year run where the Patriots, Celtics, Bruins, Patriots, Celtics all won championships. And by the way, so did the Boston Red Sox. The Red Sox won before the Celtics, after the Celtics. He's 100% correct. When you're in a city with 4 teams, the pressure is ratcheted up. You have to know that in a city like Philadelphia, I don't care what Daryl Morey says publicly. I don't care what Dave Dombrowski says publicly. Those guys know. They know that the Eagles winning 2 championships in the last 8 years is turning up the pressure cooker by a ton. Because the owners of those teams are saying, when are we going to do that? The fans are pointing to the parade and saying, when do we get that? And now everyone is responding in a way that says, when do we get that? When do we want that? When can we win a championship? It changes the entire narrative of organization. And so I don't think it is a small thing that the Eagles have won a championship, and now you are entering an offseason where the Flyers and the Sixers have both been handed golden opportunities to upgrade their teams. The Sixers have the 3rd overall pick in the NBA draft. That is a blessing from God. I don't care what anyone says. If the Sixers don't thank, if they don't thank somebody, then it's going to bite them in the rear. Okay, they need to be grateful. Okay, you want to thank the NBA for rigging the lottery, thank them. But you want to thank God for having mercy on your soul, for building a roster that was just stupid, Daryl Morey. Thank someone, okay? And for the Flyers, they have accumulated now 3 first-round picks. You have 2 organizations that have a chance to put themselves in a position to end championship droughts. The Flyers have been the 1 Stanley Cup final in the last 25 years. The Sixers have been the 1 NBA final, and that was 24 years ago. The Phillies have been to 3 World Series. Now, they only won 1, but they've been there 3 times. Eagles have been to the Super Bowl 4 times this century. They won 2. So now the attention turns to the Sixers and the Flyers to wake up. Time to wake up and get to work. Thanks for watching on my YouTube channel at Josh Hennig. Like, subscribe, share with your friends. Have a great night, everybody. I will be back on Monday, 6 p.m. Eastern on 97.3 ESPN FM. And of course, right here on my YouTube channel at Josh Hennig. Take care, everyone. Be safe out there. It's supposed to be a nice day on Sunday here in South Jersey. So hopefully all of you were safe after the crazy thunderstorm that passed through earlier today. Supposed to rain a little bit more tonight and tomorrow. This is your weather forecast brought to you by the guy who works in media. Have a good one, everybody.